If you're looking for a webcam that'll allow you to look directly into the eyes of the person that you're meeting with, you might want to try this. What's happening, Panda Nation? Peter Von Panda here. I just picked this up. It's the iContact Camera Pro. I thought it was kind of interesting. This is not the first camera to drop down into the middle of your screen. Certainly one of my favorites there has been Center Cam, but what makes this interesting is that it has this pivoting arm. So it kind of moves out of the way when you don't need it. I actually think that's a pretty helpful little innovation there. I actually don't know, because it's uncovered there when it's in the up position, if this camera works like this in this position too, so you can actually have a camera up here, but I think it's always meant to be in that down position so that when I am looking at the screen, I'm actually looking at the camera too. Otherwise, if the camera's at the top of the monitor, I'm usually doing this. I'm looking at the person on the monitor. That can get really annoying. And so this is meant to put this right in the middle of the screen and keep your eyes focused on the person you're talking to. So let's take a look at it and then try it out. Alright, so here's the iContact Camera Pro. It has a pretty nice box, kind of Apple-ish. I will say a couple things before we get into the looks of it too much. The logo to me looks like Logitech. First glance, thinking that this was a Logitech product, to me, as far as I can tell, this has nothing to do with them. Just kind of has that smiling eye logo, which kind of looks pretty similar. The other thing I will say about this, as I'm pulling it out here, is that it comes from China. I did not know that, and given that this is like a $200 webcam, I would have thought it would probably maybe be manufactured in China. That doesn't surprise me. But I thought it would have been inventoried here in the United States, and then you get it pretty quickly, even 2 or 3 days later. This actually took probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks for me to get, even though the website said in stock. So keep that in mind, because I actually thought I was going to get this right away and be able to test it out, but I've been waiting on it longer than I would have liked. And so one of the things here that I will show you is that it kind of looks like your standard USB cable to USB-A. I want to show you, it looks like there's an adapter right there, so you can plug it into USB-C. So if you're using a new MacBook, you don't have to worry about that. It looks like we've got a pretty good amount of cord here. I think you just need the standard USB-A, and I bring that up because sometimes these webcams require a lot of power, and they don't work without a USB 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 Thunderbolt cable, but I don't think that this requires it, even though I believe this camera will almost be 4K, maybe 2K or something, but it's supposed to be pretty high resolution. We've got a little plastic over the lens there, so protecting it in transit, which is good. It's also how I ship myself when I fly somewhere. I just wrap myself in saran wrap. And then we have on the back here kind of your standard webcam, like cantilever hinge here. So some rubber under here, rubber here, rubber right here, so this is going to not mar your monitor, but then this will sit on top of your monitor like this, and then you will use this back to kind of brace it in. My monitor is pretty fat, so it's probably going to stick out like that, but this is pretty standard. And then you can see that there's a hinge here where the camera will rotate down, and so you can kind of align that with your camera. Now you can also see, I think these are microphones, so I think we have stereo microphones up here. Looks like we have a cold shoe up here if you want to add a light. The cable is fixed into the back of the housing right there, and then to activate this, I think you just pull it down. It seems to snap into place. It's not hard, there's not a lot of resistance there, but it does kind of snap into place and then kind of snaps up like that. Like I said, I wish there was almost a little flap right here, just covering up the lens. Maybe if you can use it in this position, then it makes sense to have it uncovered. But I think a lot of us just want to know, hey, the webcam is off. I didn't inadvertently leave a meeting running. I didn't inadvertently pull up webcam software. I didn't get hacked or whatever it is. So a little like tab that came out here and covered the webcam while it's vertical would be nice. Now, I want to say here that this is not necessarily super long. And so this is actually probably something that will work for most standard monitors that you're using at home, a laptop, I'm sure. But if you're using a really big monitor, I know a lot of us are on 37s. I'm on a 49-inch monitor. Now it's 49-inch wide, so top to bottom it kind of works like a 32 to 35-inch monitor. This isn't necessarily a lot of drop right here, okay? So what we're getting here is, and I'll give you an actual measurement, but I'd call this about 5 inches of drop. Now that's probably going to be a lot better of an experience for the people on the other end of your video calls, your trainings, your web conferences, but it's not necessarily dropping the camera way down. Now, To compensate for that, you can actually move, like say you have a zoom window or something, you can move it up here so that you can move your people up here, your documents up here, so that you're looking at them right next to the camera. I will say I do like the fact that this is pretty slim. It's thicker front to back than it is side to side, so it's not going to take up a lot of your screen, and the camera here is very small. I will say this. If you don't have this drop down, straight down at you, the only way you can adjust this camera is like this. So on the center cam, because the wire articulates, I can adjust the camera up, down, left, right. I can control the pitch and roll and the yaw a little bit. This, you're going to have to do everything with the mount. Now, the good thing is the camera is kind of mounted on the front edge of this housing up here, so it'll probably float in front of your monitor a little bit. So if you need to kind of tilt this back to get your head into frame, then it's probably going to allow you to do that. But the trade-off is that it doesn't give you a lot of flexibility to adjust where it's aimed. All right, so let's get it set up and try it out. All right, I have the camera set up here. I've dropped it down. I want to show you that I've actually measured from the bottom of the housing to the center of the webcam there, and it's basically 10 centimeters or 4 inches, so it doesn't create a lot of drop. Now, I've pulled up Leighton Meester here, and as you can see, what I could do is I could center her, but the camera really is sitting on her forehead. I would have to resize my meeting window a little bit. I think this is a pretty standard monitor, top to bottom. I don't think it's huge or anything, but if I push her up here and then put that dot right between her eyes, now if I were looking at the camera, if she were on the other end of the meeting, she would see me kind of looking right at her. Now, oftentimes I kind of pull someone just to the other side so the camera doesn't really distract me. You know, just put one person on one side, the other person on the other side, especially if you have a meeting with a couple of people. Now, the other thing I will say here is that this camera will not tilt down any farther. So because it's sitting up pretty high, I have to have it tilted down at me. And what we get is this picture. So, you know, it's not bad. It's got maybe a little bit narrower of a field of view for webcams, which is good because I don't need to show my whole room or something like that. But if I look straight into the webcam, it should look like I am looking straight at you, right? So that is the beauty of it. So I'm obviously filming this with my other camera here. Now, we actually have to test the camera and see what it does. All right, I'm just using some generic webcam recording software here. I'm going to tell you that I'm using the webcam itself. You can see that. Put my finger right up there. The color quality looks pretty good. You know, it's got a short focal length, so everything's in focus, whether it's me or the stuff way in the back. You can see it all. No bokeh effect, no blurring. You could probably do that with some software. I have some webcam software that sometimes I use to blur the background or to kind of shrink down the image and do some color correction, but you know, this is just raw. The other thing I wanted to mention here is I'm sitting, I don't know, about 20 inches away from the camera, and I am using the onboard camera microphones to record the audio. So this is the kind of audio you should expect. So I don't have, you know, my big Hypercast microphone turned on or anything like that. I'm just using the microphones built into the camera, and if I go up to it, you should hear me talking much closer to it. So hopefully that got real loud on you. Got you all scared. But this is what you can expect. Now, one of the things that I don't know is if I close the camera, will it stop filming? If it does, and it automatically turns off when the lever goes back up, all right, that could be a good thing. Could give me some peace of mind. Or if I have to quick jump on a meeting and I need all of the real estate on my screen, can I actually use the webcam when it is in the up position? So I'm going to try that out now too. All right, so the camera is in the up position and it still works. This is kind of making me think of a couple different things here. First of all, it hasn't adjusted for the different kind of angle here. So obviously I look like I'm on my side. If I were doing some cool special effects, I could make it look like I'm climbing the wall or something. That's a little strange to me. You could absolutely fix that with webcam software. The thing I do like about it, though, is that I could potentially use this, you know, even in the up position, kind of like a traditional web camera that's built into the top of every other monitor. The downside to it, though, is what I was talking about in terms of privacy. Because there isn't a camera lens cap or something, you would have to make something. So if you did get hacked or you forgot to turn off your feed and you flipped the camera out of the way and you thought, oh man, that turned it off. Well, you wouldn't really be turning off the camera. On top of that, there's nowhere on the camera that I can tell that there's a light that suggests that the camera's on. A lot of times they will have just the tiniest little LED, a little white light, just showing that it's on, maybe yellow, nothing overly distracting or anything like that. But at least on this device, and I've got it plugged into a USB-C port, should be getting plenty of power, there is no lights indicating that the camera is on and working right now. So that's kind of a strike against it. I'm kind of disappointed that, one, it hasn't reoriented the image, two, that there isn't a cover of any type, and three, that there's no indicator on the camera itself that it is live and capturing a video image or a signal. So, is it really useful? Yeah, I think for just out of the box plug and play, it is pretty useful. So I'm actually going to grab it, and I'm just going to rotate it while I'm sitting here. All right. That's weird, dude. That's weird. So, is the camera useful? Yes. It's absolutely useful for dropping down that camera and putting it onto your screen so that you're more engaged, more connected with the people that you're talking to, which is cool. I also like the fact that it has onboard microphones, so you could definitely use it as a standalone. I don't know how good the audio quality is, but you'd have to be the judge of that. If it's for work purposes, then it's probably just fine. I would say that, yes, I would probably like it to drop down even farther if the camera housing, instead of being this wide, was this wide, so that it would drop down farther. Maybe have a second version that instead of having a 4-inch drop might have a 6-inch drop. So size does matter in that case. I would also love it to reorient the image, and I would also love it to have some sort of recording indicator on it. But other than that, I think it's a pretty competent camera. I will say, at about $180 for this thing, it's one of the more expensive center-like cameras. You know, you can get a center cam for under $100. I think $99, or, you know, their higher end one, their center cam 2 is maybe just over $100, which is a totally competent camera with more adjustability in terms of height. So this has kind of a unique feature. If you just need something that works, if you want something that snaps out of the way, this will definitely work for you. Just keep in mind it's going to take 3 weeks from the time you order it to get it. So I like it, but I don't love it. I think with a few more improvements, this could be a really good web camera. But if you want to pick up the iContact web camera, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Peter Von Panda. Out.